Thanks to you guys for coming to see the talk. So I'm Irene. I'm a data scientist at Gousto, so I've been there for 3 years now. And I'm going to be talking to you about where we are with recommendations, how we got there, and where we hope to go. I hope you enjoy it. So first of all, just a quick show of hands, who's actually heard of Gousto before? Oh, wow. For like the first time we started talking, this is such a difference, so that's really cool. For those of you who haven't heard of us, we are a meal kit delivery company. So basically, you come to our website, we have a weekly menu of 40 recipes. You pick which recipes you want, what day you want it delivered on, and on that day, we send you a box with pre-portioned ingredients and step-by-step recipe cards. So, we get to do all the boring planning and shopping, and you get to do all the fun cooking and eating, and hopefully with virtually zero waste. So it's kind of win-win. So since we started, we've really pushed to improve our customer proposition. So from having 12 recipes on the menu a week, we've gone up to 40. From 3 days delivery, we've gone up to 7-day delivery, and from all this by keeping a relatively low price. So a lot of the way we manage this is through data science. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of the different ways in which we actually use data science at Gousto. So this is a kind of typical customer journey. So someone will see us on an ad, come to our website and pick recipes. So even in that journey, so we've got segmentation, making sure that we're understanding kind of where why our customers are coming to us, and then once you've picked your recipes, it will be all packed in in our delivery center up in Lincolnshire. So for that, for example, we have forecasting. With that short lead time, it's really important for us to be able to tell our suppliers how much of each ingredient we're going to need quite early on. So we've really invested in building a robust forecasting algorithm to make sure that we can give customers what they want, but also that we, as a business, are making sure we're keeping our food waste low and that we're being sustainable. So that's quite a big part of it. Then warehouse operation. So in our warehouse, we also heavily rely on data science. So we've got different optimization algorithms to make sure that all the ingredients are kind of where they should be, and that the boxes are being routed in a way that is going to have the most throughput so that we can pack the maximum amount of boxes in the least amount of time. And then hopefully you'll get the box, you'll really enjoy it, and you'll come back. But if you don't, we are keeping a watchful eye. So we've also built a churn model algorithm. So from really early on, we take all the user behavior data, and we can kind of start seeing if we think you're going to leave us. Hopefully we can change your mind. And then kind of tying it together, and it touches quite a lot of places, is personalization and recommendations, which is what I'm going to talk to you about today. So before we go into a bit more technical stuff, I just wanted to I think it's always useful to give a little bit of context of why we're doing this. So why did we think that recommendations was something we wanted to go after at Gousto? So as I said, we always knew that we wanted to improve our proposition and increase the number of recipes, and we're at 40 now, but we're not necessarily stopping there. So it's really important that we give people a way to comfortably navigate that amount of choice. We don't want it to become kind of paralyzing, and we want to make sure that people are able to find choice that is relevant to them and that is meaningful. Then also discovery. We want Gousto to be exciting. We don't want it to be giving you the same recipes all the time. We want to entice you to try new things, try new cuisines, make sure that we've got a good amount of different stuff. So discovery is also one of our big things. Finally, convenience. Like Gousto, we like to think and we try to make it as convenient a service as possible. Hopefully it's it's helping you with your week. So we want to make sure that we also translate that to the menu. So we want it to, even though we have a lot of choice, make it super hard, sorry, the opposite, super easy and quick for you to find those recipes. So we thought we could tackle these three things through recommendations and allow us to expand our proposition while keeping these three things in mind. So when we decided this, we just kind of went ahead, launched into it, and we did quite a lot of research online, and we actually found LightFM. So if you've heard of LightFM, it is a package done from Matche at List, well, when he used to be at Least. And it's a matrix factorization package, and it does, quite a lot of things like really well. So we found a lot of successful examples of people using it online, and it allows you to put, like metadata for a lot of things. So we were like, right, let's go for it. And we tried to implement it, and actually we were really struggling to get like consistent results. So we were seeing that our metrics were not really very good. They were changing a lot from menu to menu. So we started, forking and trying to tweak it a little bit. And again, we spoke to the author, and he's super helpful. But ultimately, it was quite computationally heavy. And I think because we were at the beginning of our journey, and we were still trying to speak to stakeholders and stuff, it was also quite hard to explain to them. It was quite black boxy. So we kind of got almost to the end of the road with this and sat down and said, okay, wait, let's maybe take a step back and think, okay, why is this really good for a lot of other stuff, but isn't working in our case? So we thought, and we had a big session, and we thought, okay, so what is actually what makes our problem different? Number one, we have a lot of new recipes. So obviously, as I said, diversity and convenience, we want to make sure we're giving customers new recipes. So about 20 to 25% of a menu is consisted of new recipes. So we need to make sure that the cold start problem, so if you're not familiar with the cold start problem, it's the fact that you sometimes struggle to recommend either new items or for new users because you don't have any data on them to go about. So we needed to make sure that we had a really strong solution against this, because otherwise that was really going to affect our metrics. Two is the fact that we have a changing menu. So, as I've said, we have 40 recipes on the menu, and they change week by week. Some of them stay the same, but basically they're different week by week, which means that we only have a tiny portion of our catalog available at any one time, which is, again, quite different to many other use cases. And number three is the fact that we have a weekly meal plan. So, you can only buy a certain amount of portions per box anyway, which is kind of inherently creating constraints there. But number two is the fact that, if you are preparing for your week and you want to make sure that you've got variety within that week. So if you really like wraps, chances are, even if there are 3 on the menu, you're not going to buy 3 wraps. You're going to want a mixture. So it's not enough with pushing to the top the stuff that we think you're really going to like. And so going back to this, we said, okay, let's keep it simple. What do we really know about? And that's our recipes. We have a lot of information on our recipes, and we thought that some of those things would be really fixed by understanding A, what is a recipe? B, how do you define recipe similarity? Turns out it's actually super hard. So we kind of got a team of people together, and we all kind of discussed different, and it was from the whole business. It was the food team, it was the digital product team. We all kind of started brainstorming, okay, what do we think is important about a recipe? What defines it? And we came up with a really long list of attributes that obviously we know, so we started populating that. And then, in terms of recipe similarity, so it really means different things to different people, and I think that's super, it's become super clear to me over time. So just a quick example, I hope, we've only got 2 hours till lunch. So we've got Brazilian black beans and limey chicken with rice, and then a Cambodian chicken sambal curry. So for someone who comes to our website and uses our service because they're perhaps a bit stuck in a rut and want to try like, really exciting, different flavors. They're like, oh, one's Brazilian, one's Cambodian, they're really different in flavor. Yeah, I can totally eat these 2 in a week, no problem. But for someone else who perhaps uses our service to make sure that they're eating a balanced diet, they're like, well, yeah, it's different flavor, but actually it's just chicken and rice, so I wouldn't want to have it in the same box. And that's just, a tiny example, but like, if you talk to different people about this, even within the office, people just have such different ways of approaching this. So with our taxonomy that we created, that I discussed, what we actually decided to do was to upload it to a graph database called the Neo4j. So in a graph database, it's just a different way of storing data. So you store everything in kind of relationships. So you say, spaghetti bolognese has ingredient tomato paste. And what this allowed us to do is to really easily have a look at what features certain recipes shared and which they didn't share. So in this example, we can both see that these 2 pastas have dish type pasta, but you can see that one has lamb, one has pork. So yeah, this is like, we started building this graph database, and I just wanted to touch like really quickly on why we decided to go for Neo4j for this case. So as you can imagine, recipe and ingredient data is all like super connected. It's all like a bit, messy. And that's what we were really interested on for this problem, to solve recipe similarity. We wanted a way to quickly analyze those connections. Number 2 is that it gives like a really nice, flexible data structuring. So say, for example, for tuna, we want to give it the attribute tinned, but we don't care that something else isn't tinned, so it's really easy to just give it to certain ingredients and not to others. And thirdly, it's really easy to create inferences, so we can say, okay, if a recipe has ingredient chili flakes, then we can very easily give it the attribute spicy. And it's really easy to connect to Python and to learn Cypher, which is their querying language. So yeah, this is a little bit of why we chose to go down this route. And also, this is just like a really quick aside, so please don't ask me any questions on this, because it was a super quick side project that some of my team did. So yes, we know that there's a lot of properties to describe our recipes, but actually the way people choose on our menu, and our menu in general, is incredibly visual. You might have 2 recipes that actually aren't very similar in terms of taste profiles or whatever, but if they're displayed, maybe a bed of noodles or a bed of fries and a fish fillet on top, they can look incredibly similar, and it might look like, it's a big part of it. So we did a bit of work to build an autoencoder. This is where we/they got to really try and put that into similarity. But that was just a little aside to show you, that even though we've got a lot of data, there's also always so much more to consider. So yeah, this is kind of the basis of our content-based recommender. So taking what we have in the graph database, we used different similarity metrics, and we ended up landing on Jacquard. We found it gave us the best, the best metrics, which is incredibly simple and great. So once we had a similarity metric between any 2 given recipes, we kind of aggregated that with the customer's order history, and that gave us a really easy way to rank for the recipes on the menu we're recommending for, to rank from top to bottom in terms of how similar is it to stuff that we know you've already bought. So super simple. This was kind of our first version that went live, and we actually saw really positive results, compared to random. Even though we didn't tell them we were ranking the recipes, loads more people were ordering from those top ranks. So, we were really excited that we'd, done our first step. So, good points for content-based. It deals really well with the cold start problem for new recipes that I was describing earlier, because we know the information about those recipes as well as old recipes. So that's really good points for it. However, we ran into what is known in the office as the chicken conundrum. So me personally, I order maybe 3 recipes for Gousto a week. One of them is normally always chicken, and then I have, maybe a beef one week, maybe a fish one week, and it varies. But if you look at all my data, like about 30% of my recipes are chicken. Now, because you can see this is like pretty simple, it's a really rule-based approach, which means that what's the recommendation engine going to recommend me? Chicken. So this is an example. They're basically all chicken. And so we, yeah, and we do sell other stuff, I promise. So yeah, this is kind of, we realized that this was a big problem of content base. So even though we've done a step forward, there was the big problem that our recommendations just lacked variety. So we needed to address that somehow. So again, in the same way that we tried to approach the content base from a simple way, we said, okay, how can we approach this variety in also a simple way? And so we decided to start, using a very simple collaborative base. So for those of you who don't know, collaborative is, because a user like you ordered X, so you will also like X. So again, going back to super basics, what we did was create features for all of our users. So based on what they were ordering, a little bit of behavioral data, we used some k-means clustering and found kind of, these 5 clusters. So we had a look at them to make sure that they were giving something, generally reasonable. And you could, this is like super simplifying it, but more or less we could see that the clusters made sense. There was, more vegetarian, slightly more pescatarian, slightly more Asian flavors. So this made sense to us. And what we did was then say, okay, so for each of the clusters, of all the old recipes that have already been on the menu, what did they over-index on? What did this cluster buy more than anyone else? And obviously, as you can imagine, for the pescatarian, it will tend to be pescatarian recipes. So yeah, this kind of gave us 5 different rankings, one for each of the cluster, and each user will be assigned to one of the different clusters. So so as I mentioned, again, this doesn't deal with the cold start problem because we don't know how people, those recipes haven't been on the menu, so we can't rank for old recipes, for new recipes, but it dealt really well with the old ones. And then when we had our previous ranking and this new ranking, we worked on how to combine both of them. So we used border count, which just used, Wikipedia tells me it was a weird Slovenian district to decide their politicians, not really sure. So yeah, what we have here is like examples of recipes. Our first method rank, so all of them are ranked because it doesn't have the cold start problem. And the way border count works is you basically give each ranking a score, which is just simply the rank divided by how many recipes there are. So that's our content-based rank. Then we have our collaborative rank. So as you can see, the new recipes don't have a rank for this because, as we said, we can't do that with this method. And then again, we had to think, okay, so how do we balance the fact that we don't have ranks for new recipes with a collaborative score and give it in the new rank? So we created an extra ranking, which is the content rank, but only for the new ones, to make it a little bit fairer on those new recipes as well. And then you simply add the score, and as you can see, so the biggest change was kind of, the beef recipe, which, is 4th in the content rank, but actually was at the bottom of the collaborative rank and ends up at the bottom overall. So we have moved the things that were a little bit more extreme, which is what we wanted. So we don't want to fully go away from that content-based recommendations because we know it's stuff you're going to want, but we do want to, spice things up a little bit with the collaborative things. And yeah, before I move on, when we were validating this, we actually found that our metrics, so our basket match on past menus, went down from what we had, which if you think about it, again, thinking about the chicken, like if we give you a chicken, we know we're going to get it right kind of thing, at least once. But, we had to think and said, okay, well, even though our metric might go down a little bit, it's what's best for the customer, right? We don't want to keep showing them at the expense of this metric, and then we can focus on improving it in different ways. So yeah, that's that. And then I just really briefly wanted to touch on how everything's structured. So we run everything through Airflow, which used to be like an Airbnb open source tool. I think it's not Airbnb now. But yeah, it's an orchestration tool, so we can tell everything, we've got everything running at a schedule. Our recommendation engine, we're running it on Docker and on AWS Batch. So it collects data from Neo4j, as I discussed before. So it retrieves that taxonomy data. And it also speaks to our data lake, which is based on a lot of stuff that our data engineer will be, will know more about. And yeah, so we fetch data from there, and we also make sure to put it back so that the rest of our services can use it. So yeah, just to let you know. So that's where we are now, but obviously we have a lot of ideas for the future. So first of all, I think, as you can see, our collaborative version is just 5 rankings. So we do want to make sure that it's, again, a good first step, but let's start building on it. And we've come across neural collaborative filtering, which I think is going to be our next step to make sure that we're really personalizing that collaborative aspect as well a little bit more. Then something else we want to start touching upon is feedback introduction. So either implicit, so we're starting to say, okay, if we know you haven't ordered from like the top ranks, like let's take that into account and downweight those recipes a little bit, and like really reward recipes from like perhaps the bottom that you've picked to make sure that we're keeping that right. But also we want to start using explicit feedback, so giving customers, like Spotify, whatever, to say like yes or no in terms of recommendations. So we're really excited about that. And then at the moment we run it once a week. So with the current setup, we don't need to run it anymore because it's not really going to give us much better results. But we do want to start to move towards like slightly more dynamic approach. So can we make collaborative in a way where actually we can use the data that's happening live to feed into like, people who haven't ordered yet, and also even make it even more dynamic. If we know what you've put in a basket, your first recipe, can we tell you, oh, we think you'll enjoy this with it, and start suggesting things like that. So yeah, lots to come, hopefully soon. And then I just wanted to finish off with a bit less technical stuff, but we found that like you might have, you can have a good algorithm, and even just by ranking the recipes, we saw good results, but where we've really seen like a significant difference in conversion and in other metrics is through tying that to the UI and UX. So we think it's really important, and we've been working quite hard on getting people to understand a little bit more of why we're doing what we're doing and surfacing those recommendations in a more obvious way. So now when they reach the point where they can get recommendations, they'll get an email and be like, hey, you're in, this is great. We've built a Just For You collection where we show like the top 25 recipes instead of 40. So yeah, and we tell them about it, and all this is like really helping us make those big differences. So don't underestimate the importance of UI and UX. And as well, for example, you can see this is only 9 recipes. So for people with really clear dietary preferences, we've been like making the shortlist like dramatically just to show them what they want. So even though they could go to a vegetarian collection, just by showing it there at the beginning, just what they want, we've seen like really significant improvements in conversion, which tells us that hopefully if we manage to do that well for everyone, there'll be big rewards. And yeah, just to finish off with what I started first, so again, hopefully you can see how we addressed relevant choice through the content base by giving people what they really want. We address discovery through our collaborative filtering, and then we're addressing convenience through that smart menu reduction, making sure that people can find what they want quickly. So just to finish, thought always like kind of 3 key learnings, I think, of what we've learned along the way. Is number one, before you jump into anything, like I think really stop and understand why your problem is different. I think it saves a lot of time and just makes you, when you're looking for a solution, you're already like thinking about that. So really make sure you understand what makes your problem unique. Start with what you know. Like, I think it was really good for us. Like, we knew we had all this data on recipes. That was ours. We didn't have to, rely on anything else. And I guess, like, don't be scared of doing something super simple. Like, sometimes simple things work, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, content-based isn't very hard and has given us really good results. And then finally, convenience is more important than accuracy. Like, I think as a data scientist, it's quite easy to like get, really, bogged down with the metrics and be like, oh, we've moved this by like, a tiny bit, but actually I think you need to think about how does this affect your customer? Because your customer doesn't care about your tiny uplift in your metric, but they might really care about, other kinds of things. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind. Wow, I think that's it. Thank you for listening. If you want to follow us at Gousto Tech, and we've got a Medium blog to, keep up to date with all the hopefully exciting things that we're doing. And thank you very much. Wait, so you mean using filters?
Well, I'm just interested in this whole, I think a filter bubble is an interesting concept in recommenders in general.
Right.
I'm kind of curious into how far you recognize that it's an issue on your platform or not so much, or this is sort of kept in mind.
Right, so I guess the issue of filter bubble. I think there's so much that defines a recipe that it's like quite tough to work with that. And again, like things are so different for different people that it's really hard to find the right balance of what you show. And also we think like a lot of stuff, you might say, oh, don't show me spicy things, but actually in the format we serve it, it's really easy to just not add the chili flakes. So again, also a lot of stuff. So it's thinking about what you want to, what you want them to like think about and what you're trying to almost give them a solution for, if that makes sense. We can chat later a bit more if you want. Sorry, that was a bit. Yeah.
So it's not related directly to the recommendation, but more related to the warehouse optimization. I wonder, when you are having a lot of customers, then it's easier to make the optimizations work and optimize those supply chains. But then at the beginning, how could you manage on those like the gradient and build those products for customers?
Okay, so the question is, if at the beginning when we didn't have enough customers, how did we deal with warehouse optimization? Yeah, I mean, we've come a long way. Like, we definitely went this far like 5 years ago. We've grown massively, so we've had to adapt to that. So stuff used to be a lot less optimized. But we always knew that we wanted to grow with this in mind, so started working on it soon.
And for the recommendation, did you ask the user what kind of flavor they want to try, or like is there anything they want to try, so you can create the recipe related to that add into your model?
So the question is, did we ask users if what they wanted for recommendations and for recipe development? No, we didn't. So this is all based on what they I mean, why not? Yeah. Yeah, so we're kind of toying with the idea of, you know, perhaps having some kind of dietary preferences and stuff like this, but as I said before, it's, we don't want to make it super rule-based and super, you know, you've told us you don't want this, so we're definitely not going to show you this. So, yeah, it's a balance. We'll see.
Is there, what sort of behavioral features did you use for segmentation?
So what sort of behavioral features we use for segmentation? So we didn't use a lot. We mainly focused on, yeah, what they were ordering, but we used like session length and things like that and how many times they like swapped, you know, recipes in and out to kind of determine if they were more convenient. You know, they wanted like a speedy, they just came on the website and were like boom, 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 or whether they really thought about things a little bit more. Yeah.
I was going to say, how many...
Sorry,
So problems you listed, the third problem is the weekly plan. So how do you handle the time sequence of this recipe iteration? I mean, do you consider some consecutive impact of previous week and after this and the time between each recipe?
Yeah, so in terms of weekly plan, do we take any like time consideration? So we don't at the moment, and it is something that I think we'd really benefit from. And we know it's, like I think when we introduce something like that, whether it's more, yeah, in that way or more dynamic, like I said, like kind of trying to suggest stuff after you've added to the basket, I think will represent kind of a next step change because it is a really hard problem because, yeah, the first thing you pick kind of almost determines everything else, and it's getting that right that can, you know, make a week or break a week.
For the evaluation currently, how long you trace that the effect of your recommendation for the evaluation of the metric?
So we just take it as like whatever is ordered. We don't see when, well, we don't currently take into account when they ordered it. But yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Like, we should look at if you order something first, then take that into account in the metric. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Oh, yeah. Hi. How many metrics do you look at when you're looking at a recipe? Like, how many metrics make up the recipe? Accuracy.
How many metrics? Oh, like
yeah, like you said, like there's so many things that
properties. Oh, we've got a lot. For me, it'd be kind of. I mean, a lot.
A lot.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not, you know, thousands, but like.
Yeah, it's just curious.
I think
and every time a new recipe comes in, you have to update all of those.
Yeah. So my the food developer team kind of, you know, hates me a little bit because I keep prodding them. But yeah, obviously we use it in other parts of the business as well. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are obviously important from an operational point of view, but then there's other stuff that is purely, you know, more important to kind of me. And someone came up the other day with like, oh, but I love crunchy recipes. That's what I always want. And it's like, oh God, do I have to add something else for like crunchy now? So, yeah.
All right, we got time for one more question? Should I be the last one?
I'll stick around if you'll, yeah, I'll be around all day.
I was wondering whether your... Thanks for the talk. I was wondering if there's any move to use your recommendation system in terms of how you decide on new recipes that you're adding to your menu and like how you go, whether you can go from the sort of content-based method you described to something sort of generative where you say this is the kind of recipe we want.
Yeah, so around building new recipes from the data we have, it's always been something we've discussed, and I think we are kind of moving to a place where we have the capacity to be suggesting that kind of thing. And also, yeah, just helping more in the general menu planning side of the business and, yeah, saying, okay, we've got loads of similar recipes here, but actually these ones perform really well, but we have less of. Can we make sure we introduce that? So we're not doing it yet, but it's definitely something we've discussed, and it's just, and I think we'll probably come. But there is always, again, that, like, you can give